Hello and welcome. Welcome to another edition of Tilda Center Workshop, and welcome to our backend workshop where we will today take a look what the ORM is, what models are, how we handle working with the databases inside our project. Why is that important? Well, whenever you're working on a backend, basically you communicate with the database, you store some data, you read some data, and then return it back to the front end. So that is what we will take a look today. We will take a look how we use the PV, that's the name of the library we are using, that Freenit is using. We will see how we create that, how we create models, how we apply our database changes to the database itself, and we will create our first blog, which then leads us to creating. Just a second, I think my mic is kind of running wild. I believe now it is better. So that will lead us to where was I? Yeah, that will lead us to when we create our blog, then we can actually implement our other AP requests for listing multiple blogs, for listing one blog. Yeah, the thing that is my mic better now, because my PC is running wild for some reason, and it's probably shown in the mic too. I don't know why, but it's gotten crazy. It's overheating and yeah, basically being really wild. I'm not sure, but yeah, I tried to mute my mic a little bit. I believe now it is better. Now I'm too silent. How about now? Let me just do this too. I need to hear myself, so I'm gonna jump onto the live stream and see if I'm on the live stream, and yes, the sound is my PC running wild for some reason. Okay, let's get back to the actual work we need to do here. So as I mentioned, our database management tool, our library that we are going to be using is PV. There is a lot of libraries you can use for ORM implementations. PV is quite simple, and I don't know, I was introduced to it, I liked it. I looked into SQL Alchemy, and dear lord, it's so confusing. So I suggest stick with PV if you want. If you want to take a look at something else, of course, I support it. But yeah, I think PV is like perfect. What PV does, when you think about the database, if you ever looked at the database, you connect to it and you run some query, select this from that, or update this to that where something is, and that's kind of complicated, especially when you run a backend application, and if you need to write those queries that need to be dynamic, that need to update the specific stuff you need. And that's where PV comes in as object-oriented model. What that tells us is we use PV. This is the website on the screen. We use PV to represent the data structure in the database as our object inside Python. So we never actually look into database. We never handle any SQL queries. We are handling Python objects that we know and love and know what to do with them. And it's much easier for us as developers to look at the stuff from Python point of view and not from SQL point of view. For someone who cares about it, Freenit is running on SQLite, it has support for new SQL and different databases, but we are running this workshop for SQLite. Maybe it's not a bad idea at some point to have a workshop and take a look how to use something different. Just a second. Of course I can do something like this. Did I overdo it? I hope not. Okay. So let's get back to the workshop. As I said, we are using PV to represent the database structure as our I can speak louder. I can try doing that. Maybe it's up to me. Let's do this, and I will try to speak louder. I hope I'm not shouting because I have headphones on, so I can't hear myself very well. Okay, let's get back to PV again. Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually using it doesn't matter. I want to come back to the PV. Where was I? Yes. So it has support for Python 2 and Python 3. We don't care about Python 2. We are running everything on Python 3. Python 2 is dead long ago. What we will do today is create our model. Now, what happens when you create a model? Basically, what you need to do is then create a migration for the database. That's something like a DB change, a script that's gonna update your database. Sorry. just to cough a second. Yeah, I cared enough not to cough into the mic. So when we write a model, we need to update the database. If we don't, then when we try to write our new blog to store it inside the database, of course there won't be a table, there won't be any columns, so we won't be able to write anything. And then what we do is we create a migration that reads our models, and then updates the database accordingly, and then we can actually do our stuff. So that is migration. That's our DB change that we will have to do. Now, one interesting thing that PV has, not interesting, but actually thing that we need is the fields. If you remember schema we talked about last week that had some fields, well, PV also has the similar fields that we are going to be using. It represents the type of field inside the database. As you see here on their website, there's a lot of fields. There's I don't know, anything you can ever think of to use. One important one is foreign key field that we will talk about. I think it is easier when we have example to talk about it, and we will explain what it is. You can see its type is integer, but it's kind of special. It's not just it is an integer, but it is a special value. So we will talk about that, and during our workshop we will see us using different types of fields. Of course, we won't be showing all of these when you are doing something. You just use the fields you need. So I'm gonna jump inside our code for now, and here when we take a look at the models, we have a new model which is quite simplistic now. In the future it will be updated. For now it has the basic stuff, and this is the structure of the model. We import the Freenit stuff, we import PV stuff. As you see, we import fields that we just looked here. We import fields that we are going to be using, and we create a new DB model that's called model. and then we create a class. Now inside that class we are using the fields quite similar as we used the schema marshmallow. Similar stuff we are doing here, only for the database. So if we take a look at our schema side by side that we did last week, so on the left is the model, on the right is the schema. I mean, it's written block schema. We have our author, we have content, we have date, and we have the title. And you see here we have author, content, date, and title, and the ID field is automatically generated here inside the database, so we don't need to add it. It's set up as a special field, as auto increment, so we never tell our program or our database, okay, this is the value of the ID field. It's auto increment, so it's always unique. Okay, now I'm gonna turn off this schema. We took a look at that last week. As you can see here, we have text field, we have datetime field, content and title are text field, date is a datetime field. We are using the default value. What the default value does is giving us default value, nothing more to say. If we don't specify the value, it will store the value of datetime.datetime UTC now. That's just a library to get current date and time. And the author is the special field I mentioned, the foreign key field. What that does, when you think about it, when we create our blog and we want to have an author that's gonna be our user that's logged in, that created the blog, you will see in a second when we actually create our blog. But we create the blog, and then if we want to have information about our user, we can store all the data about the user inside the blog, inside the blog blog table, which would be kind of stupid. We repeat our data for no reason, or we can just use a pointer to the user that created the blog, which foreign key field does. It uses an integer that points to the table of user that points to the user that created the blog. It's an ID or some kind of reference to the user field that where our author is stored. Now, if you see, we have foreign key field towards the user that created. Now, what this backref does is to have like a backwards reference, and that gives us availability to do stuff like for user admin, give me all the blogs he created, and that like that we can get a list of all the blogs one user created. We don't need to search through the database and just get we don't need to check ourselves. We can use that backref and just get the list of all the blogs that were created by that specific user. In future, we will implement that functionality, so you will see how that works and what we get back and stuff like that. Okay, so that would be our model. Now, before that model shows up inside the database, we need to do a migration. As I mentioned, it's our DB change. We need to update our database so it is shown, so it replicates our code. Now, that's something known as code first, where you write your code and then database replicates it. There is other possibility where you can model the database and then use the code to basically do it the other way around. Think about the whole database infrastructure and then make the code for it. What we are doing here is we are making the code and then creating the database accordingly. That is why we have models. I mean, never mind. Okay, now how to actually do the migration. When we are in the root of our project, what Freenit does for us is it creates the source, it creates the virtual environment where all the packages are stored, so you don't populate your own PC with all the different versions, and that the Python virtual environment enables us to have multiple projects with multiple dependencies and stuff like that. So what we are going to do first, yeah, this is the command. What we are going to do first is activate our virtual environment so we can use our Flask because it is installed inside it, not on our global PC, and all the dependencies of it. So what I did is I said source. By default, Freenit creates a virtual environment inside this directory with name of your project, similar as you see my first blog back, and then inside that directory you go bin activate.fish. I mean, I can go there just to not this, my first blog back, and if you take a look here, there is all the libraries, okay, all the libraries that we need for the project that are pulled. That is being done by init script, and if you see here, we have all the possible scripts that we need. Now if I go back to my first blog and we look at this command, for you at home, if you are using the bash shell, you probably need just bin.activate. You can check that by doing echo shell. As you see, I'm using fish shell, so there is just a slight difference. It does the same thing, it's just for different shell act differently. So I'm using activate.fish and just hit enter, run that script, and if you see something like this here, you know your environment is activated. Now, what we do is take a look at Flask migration. And we have some commands: create, list, and run. We will take a look how to create our migration, how to apply it to our database. And it's quite simple. I mean, it's 3 commands. If we take Flask migration list, we see our first initial migration, which is being done when Freenit spins up. Why it's being done? Well, because you need a database to store your user, you need a database to store your roles and stuff like that. The all functionality that Freenit comes with, that's what is being done with the initial migration. But now, because we are changing our code, we're adding new functionality, changing the database, we need to create another migration. So what we do is say Flask migration create blog. Now, before I do that, if I go inside any different directory and go Flask migration list, it's complaining, okay, there's no such command migration. That is why we need to be inside the root of our project. If you take a look inside our project, there is a folder called migrations, and there is here, this is our migration, initial migration. You can watch here what's being done and stuff like that, and it doesn't matter. This is the Python script for updating our database, and most of the time you don't really care. You just run it via Flask, and Freenit is gonna on init. It's gonna always run it for you. So there's not much to think except Flask migration create blog. We do that. It says, oh cool, migration has been created. Now, when we take a look at migrations, we see there is another migration blog.py. Oops. Blog.py, yeah. And now, even though we have created a migration, the changes are still not applied inside our database. What we do now is say Flask migration run, and as you can see, we have changed column users to whatever he said. Change column users, active, boolean fields, change blah 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 blah. Why he said that, I don't know, but promise me this works. I promise you this works. Basically now our database is being updated, has been updated, and to exit the source, to exit the virtual environment, we run deactivate, and that's it. Now for us to show, just a second, not that. Oh, okay. So this, why it has shown, is about a bug in PV migration that's been running for like a year now, but it doesn't change the workflow, it doesn't change anything for us. It's our migration works, and that's okay. So I'm gonna come back here, and we will now, we have our updated database, and we need a way to use it. Because this is going really quick, we will probably have a time to add a little bit more functionality than we have currently in the code, which is totally okay. We are gonna go through this. Now this is the same file that we had created inside API directory. We have blog.py, and what I have done here, of course the code will be, just a second, I think I mentioned that last week. I mean, I did mention it last week, I forgot to mention it this week. Framework, yes. And if you take a look at Backend tutorial, this is the code of last week we did. And now after this workshop, the code will be here updated for this week. So yes, that's it. This on this link, Freenit framework / backend tutorial, and there is also a front-end tutorial that Meka is doing every other Wednesday. So his repo is also being updated. Now let's get back to here. Now the changes comparing to the last week's file, we have added a new import for JSON Web Token, because we are using the JSON Web Token between authentications to store our session and to keep our session, and now we need it because we need to get the identity of our user to when we create the blog, so we can tie that foreign key field to the right user and have the right data inside the database. And here, because we need our JSON Web Token, we have another descriptor that's basically JSON Web Token required. It's pretty self-explanatory. And if we take a look here, now here we had no code, and now look, we do what we do inside here. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this. We only imported our schema. Now we import our blog, and we also import our model for the user, because we are going to use it. And we import our blog we just created. Now what we do here is, using that object blog, we create a new object that's called blog, and that is passed the arguments from our function. And why this star args? Well, basically because we don't know the size or the amount of arguments we have. This is a dynamic way of Python to get everything, basically, if I'm correct. What we do here is we, from the get JWT identity, we get the user ID, and this is not needed. Let's print here, and what we do with that user ID, we try and get from our database the user that has the specific ID that's stored inside the JSON Web Token, and we say, okay, that is our user. We create another object that is user of type user. If that user does not exist, okay, we say our user not found, so we can't create our blog. Now, if you take a look here with all these args, you know we are going to pass, because of our schema we created last week. I mean, let's take a look like this. You know we are going to pass our title, we are going to pass our content, date is being dynamically created, ID is dump only, and author is dump only, and date is dump only too. Author is dump only, where we just got using the JSON Web Token, so we are going to pass title and content, and that is why we have these args that we are passing to blog. And what happens under the water, these title and content are being mapped to the title and content we created inside our database. That is why they are, whoops, okay, I messed up. That is being mapped here to our title and content and date that is dynamically created, or actually we have default, and author we are going to map right here. Blog.author is equal to user. We are doing this manually because we didn't get that value from the arguments passed when we call this function. Once we add our user, once we passed the title and content, and as I said, we have default value for our okay, all the snips is messing up stuff. We have default value for daytime. We just go blog.save. We save our blog inside the database, and then we return blog that pass again through schema and return it in that nice format. So this is a way for us to create a blog post. Of course, this I already know that in the future we will add a little bit more to this model, but for now this is basic to see how it works. We won't add much, but yeah. So now that we have our model, we have our updated database, and we have some real API that actually does something. Yes, you are quite right. Can I do this? Yes, I can do this. Yay. And I go to the backend. Yeah. So Maker reminded me that it's the perfect time to show this diagram from the GitHub or from the PyPy site. So what's going on is when we call our endpoint, when we call our API, by using the blueprints, we know what path is which class mapped to. So we call the function for creating. It's passed through schema. The function creates our blog. It passes it to model when we create blog with the arguments. It passes through model and we add our author in dynamically inside the memory in our object, not database, just the object. Oh, okay. Something like this. Oops. Okay. So we where were we? We hit our endpoint, we hit the blueprint route, and we call this block list API. We wanted the post method, and with our schema we pass the right arguments. Now what happens? We create our blog model. Oops. Ooh, maybe this can be easier, I guess. Okay, we created our blog model. Basically, we created an object, Python object that is of type blog, and we passed him the values of those fields he has. Then we checked for the user identity. We found the user that created the blog, and we mapped it to the field of our model, the author. We mapped our user, and then what we did when we hit this blog.save, we said, okay, store this inside the database, so we don't keep it in the memory as an object anymore, and it's still being kept in as an object in the memory, but what's important is being saved inside the database. And when we go return blog, what happens now is, I zoomed out by accident. What happens now is we pass it again through schema. We give it that format that we want, that we defined with our schema, and because we have dump only stuff here, now the schema is gonna look a little bit different than the way coming in, which we will see in a minute. So it will show us the ID of that blog, the title, the author, which we will see how foreign key field actually reacts, what's gonna happen. We are gonna have the content, and we are gonna have the date time, actually the time when blog was created. Now that's this diagram. Basically that's the flow of our data and what actually happens. And now all is left that is for us to see what actually happens. So what I'm going to do is, this is maybe a little small, I'm not sure how much you see, but it doesn't really matter for now. All I'm doing is running bin init and bin devel.sh. I'm just running the development environment for a project, so that is why this part is a little bit smaller. It's not that important. Now we wait for it to finish, and when we are finished with it, we have our Swagger, and let's refresh. Okay, this is quite familiar, except now we have create a blog post that's actually doing some work. For that to work, because we need to have our JSON Web Token to define our user, we are gonna log in as our user that's already existing, and go execute. Okay, we are logged in, and let's go down and let's create our blog post. Same as always, we go try it out. Oh, good mouse, you can see the mouse on the screen, and this is quite cool. So title, let's go my first blog post, and let's go the content of this is my first blog post and stuff. Good. And when we hit execute, let's see if we messed up something. Okay, we got go to 100, and this is our response body. If you see, this is the response body, the schema we created. It's a little bit out of order, but if we take a look, let's go and take a look like this again, and let's open the schema. If you take a look here, we have our ID, we have our title, my first blog post, we have I'm gonna skip the author for now, we have the content, this is my first blog post and stuff. This is a string, so it can be of course much bigger than few words, but for this purpose it's few words. We have our date that's in a format I'm not bothering with formatting this date and thinking about different time zones and stuff for this workshop. That is something that if you are creating a real project, that is probably something you're gonna have to think about, because if you have users using it from US or using it from China, they have different time zones, so the time is gonna be shown different from them and stuff like that. But we don't care about that for the sakes of learning how to program in backend. And we have the author, which is oh yeah, this is schema. Okay, I thought I didn't talk about the nested field, but okay. Well, so when we take a look here, the author is, as we spoke about the foreign key field. So what we are doing, we are pointing to the user that created. We are not storing this data inside. We are storing just a pointer, just a value that represents a way to find that user. And when we dump that data, we get the nested user schema that is passed, and then we have all the values that user has. That is his email, his, whether it's admin and stuff like that. We talked about this last week, I think, and now we can take a look when we create the blog post, how we get that data back. So that is a way to change the database, and to add a new blog post. Now that is all cool, and we can mess with this. I mean, we can create as many blog posts as we want, but now what we want to do is find a way to list all blog posts that we have, because how can I know how many blog posts have we created? And now just give me a second and we will jump right on that. If we go here and go into API, now what's important is, because we now have created our schema and our model, now all that is left is for us to implement API changes, because we have a way of communication and storing the data. Now all that is left basically is, okay, do something with it. Now we are creating the blog. Next we are gonna list those blogs and stuff like that. Now I want to just do a copy paste, because I'm too lazy to write stuff by hand, and let's do something like this. Oh yeah, we need to create that. I see now in the code, but okay, we will. Okay, this is something that we need to change. This will come in the future. List blog posts. Actually, no, I'm not gonna do that this week. This is something that's gonna skip for now. I want to do something different, or maybe we can do something like that. Okay, we will change that in the future. Yeah, there probably should be. Okay, let me see if I can do something out of this. Well, yeah, I'm gonna actually use this, and oops. this is, we're gonna have some new additions here, and here this is endpoint list, because we are why is there endpoint list? No, I mean, I don't care for now. I really don't care for now. And here we don't have this currently, we will have in the future, and we need to import pagination here, which Freenit provides for us, and that is in from Freenit dot paging import page in schema and paginate. Yes. Loop arguments, we are using page in schema, and we are gonna create this, and we are gonna go blog.select, order by, we have pagination, return. Okay, that is quite cool. And let's go to here. I'm gonna explain everything. Now, for us to have a way to bring the list of this. No, what did I do? Not the model. I'm doing this because this, we had time left and I want to fill this time, not just to finish. Now I'm doing this without thinking too much about it. And we need blog schema sys.modules. Okay, what this page out schema is gonna do for us is enable us to return. I need this here. It is gonna enable us to return multiple blocks out through our schema. We will see in just a second. If I'm correct, I didn't miss anything, and this will have much more sense once we do something like this. Okay, I told you to stop. Good, because I'm not sure whether there's errors, whether it got confused, so I wanna run it from the beginning. Oh, I know one thing I didn't do. No, I did do it. Okay. Okay, we have an error where page out schema is not defined. Okay, that makes sense, because we need just a second. What do we need? We probably, yes, as guessed, page out schema. And are you gonna be awake? Nope. Yeah, I'm page out schema. I am messing something up because I'm trying to do stuff quick, but I see what I'm messing up. Okay, this is supposed to be semicolon, and I don't know why it's not waking up by its own, but I don't care for now. I'm trying to do stuff quickly to fill the time out, and maybe it was better to just leave it and think about it before before running something like this, but who cares, we're onto it now. Okay, we have more errors. Let's go and fix it. Yeah, okay, I know where we are now. Let's go into here, and of course we didn't do it. Why would we? I keep forgetting stuff because we need to do something like this. Oh, okay. If the app is not loaded the first time, if there is an error, it doesn't automatically reload. So if I'm a good programmer, it would work. from schemas dot paging import page out schema. That is the one we are using. Okay, now it makes much more sense, and I believe now I've fixed all the imports and stuff, and it should work. Okay. And how about now? This is the reason why I have the code in advanced written, so we don't go here and look into my screen while I fix all the stupid errors about, hey, you didn't import this, hey, you forgot about that, because I forget that stuff a lot. Okay, now we have our Swagger running, actually our backend running, and we have a new method, that's get method, that should get us our blog posts. Let's see if it's running, and if not, then we are gonna see why not. What you see here is the Freenit pagination. Pagination is just a way to say to the program, okay, you get this amount of data, how do you want to show them? And you tell them, okay, I want five blogs in this example per page, and as you see here, per page, and this here is telling us, okay, I want page 1, or I want second page 0. Of course, we're starting from 0 by default. If I don't have a need to look at some specific list, I go 0 and 10 just to get back some data. Okay, we didn't mess up the code, which is quite nice. And for now, as you can see, we have only my first blog posts, and let's try and do this again. Let's try and add another blog post, second blog post, and this stuff. Okay, I'm too lazy to actually write real text. It doesn't matter. We execute this. Ooh, we are unauthorized. Why? Because we need JSON web tokens. So let's come back upstairs. Let's go here. Let's go here. Let's go admin, and let's type in. Actually, I think we can do this because our token expired. Let's try something different. Let's refresh access token, because okay, we refreshed access token. There's no need to log in again if we can just do this, because we already have our thing. We have already our cookie. So second post content thing. second, execute, and I think I clicked it twice, but okay. Okay, second post to content thing. Now if I clicked it, yes, I did click it twice, because currently we are not checking for uniqueness in title and stuff like that, so we can create same blog post twice. But I think in future we are gonna create a way for that not to be able to be done. I mean, you can create the same blog post twice, it's just gonna be handled a little differently. Now when you take a look at here, we don't have anymore just one blog post, we have a list that has 3 blog posts. Here is second post, here is exactly the same I created by accident, and here is the first one. Now what we have done here, as you see, we used from Freenit the paging for the page out schema. What it does is using our schema, but only to separate that list of blogs, in our case, in this order that we define. So that is why we are using this specific page out schema that Freenit has implemented in it. And if we take a look at the code, let's go a little bit down and let's take a look what we have actually done here. So for blueprint arguments, now I think I talked about this last week, but if I didn't, I'm gonna repeat myself. So blueprint arguments are the arguments we are using for what we actually need for our the data we are using to coming in from front end to back end. And what this does is it basically telling us, okay, those arguments are located in the headers of your request. And because we are using a different, we are using the same schema for arguments and response, and here we are using a separate response, which is the blog page out schema. That is the schema we just created, basically our blog schema, but wrapped around the pagination. I don't know how to say it in English. Pagination. And here we are getting, as one of our arguments, we are getting the pagination, which is this thing that we are telling how to handle multiple how to handle that list, how to paginate it. And what we are doing here is using again our model, and this is a way of a query. Instead, if we are using SQL, we could do select star from blog and then order by blog.author, even though I'm not sure how it will order by author, even though I'm not sure how SQL would handle order by author. Order by ID, it would do fine, but it doesn't matter. So this is represented like this. This is a simple query that we are using the PV to handle instead of writing the SQL query. So when you take a look at it, blog.select, so I'm selecting all blogs. I can add arguments. We will take a look. We have example here. User.get get me the specific user that has this ID, and we will take a look more about writing this kind of queries. And what I'm doing here, okay, that result, you can order it by blog author. For now, I mean, this doesn't make really much sense because we only have one user, so it's not gonna order them too much. But when you have multiple users, it will be ordered by user we want. And then the return is not just the blog because it's multiple blogs. It can be, and we are using, okay, return me that list we got, but handle it with pagination. This, of course, Freenit implemented, so we don't need to think about how to paginate. We can, down the line, when we handle our creating the project and handle our programming better, we can take a look and understand how Freenit this actually implements. But for now, it does it for us, and it's perfectly fine. It works really well for us to create our first blog. So yes, this is about it I had for today. Even this select all blog post wasn't really planned, but I'm happy we got it covered. Next week we are gonna see I'm not really sure what. I'm sure we are gonna see how to get one blog post, probably create something more. I will need to think about it. But yeah, we are advancing towards having more stuff to do with our blog posts and with our data. Definitely we are gonna need a way to delete a blog, to edit and stuff like that, to get through all possible HTTP requests, like get all, post, patch, delete and stuff like that. We are gonna see how to use, if you can see here, how to use the URL part of the request to actually send some data to our backend and to use it. So this URL that our endpoint can be dynamic. We will take a look at that. There's a lot of stuff to cover, and we will take a look at that some stuff next week, some other week, and stuff like that. Okay, I'm about to finish this live stream, so thank you for watching. And I have one important thing to mention, because this live stream is done by Tilda Center. We are totally free community. We all our workshops are free. We believe in knowledge and open source, but because we are a hackerspace doing our live meetups, and we like to hang out and teach people, and we are currently in between apartments because of all of this, and we have opened a Patreon page that serves the purpose of us having enough money to get a new apartment. So if you can come to this link, patreon.com/Tilda Center, and if you have $1 to spare, we would be much obliged. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you for listening, and see you next week.